I thought Megan was everything I had ever wanted. Smart, beautiful, and seemingly crazy about me. For 2 years, I had been saving every penny from my software development job for my dream of starting a business. When Megan started asking about my finances, something felt off, but I ignored it. The day I discovered her real intentions changed everything. Little did she know I would not just protect myself. I would bring down her entire operation. Before I share how this all went down, drop a comment where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button for more true stories. Looking back, I never thought I would find myself in this situation. At 32 years old, I had established a comfortable life in Seattle as a software developer for a growing tech company. Despite earning a good salary, I lived frugally in a modest one-bedroom apartment in Capitol Hill. Every month, I diligently deposited a significant portion of my paycheck into a high-yield savings account. After 2 years of disciplined saving, I had accumulated $175,000. Money earmarked for my dream of launching my own tech startup someday. My friends often teased me about my frugal lifestyle. While they upgraded to luxury apartments and leased new cars, I kept my 10-year-old Honda and Brown bagged my lunch most days. This was all part of my plan. Sacrifice now, build something meaningful later. Then came that rainy Tuesday in October when everything changed. I had ducked into a downtown coffee shop to escape a sudden downpour. As I shook water from my jacket, I noticed her. Auburn hair cascading over slender shoulders, fingers dancing across a laptop keyboard, a confident smile playing on her lips. When the barista called out Megan and she stood to collect her drink, I could not help but notice her designer clothes and the graceful way she moved through the crowded space. By some stroke of luck, the only available seat was across from her. I asked if I could join her, fully expecting rejection. Instead, her emerald eyes lit up with interest as she gestured to the empty chair. What started as small talk about the relentless Seattle rain evolved into a 3-hour conversation about everything from hiking trails in the Cascades to our mutual love for obscure indie films. Megan told me she worked as a financial consultant for high-net-worth individuals, helping them optimize investment portfolios and plan for retirement. Her knowledge of financial markets impressed me, and the way she spoke about wealth-building strategies aligned perfectly with my own mindset. It felt like fate that we had met. Our connection was immediate and powerful. Within weeks, we were spending every weekend together, taking day trips to Portland, cooking elaborate dinners in my small kitchen, and staying up late talking about our dreams for the future. For the first time in years, I found myself thinking about more than just my business goals. I started imagining a future with someone else in it. My best friend Derek met Megan at a dinner party about a month into our relationship. Later that night, he pulled me aside with a concerned expression. "She seems great, guy, but do not you think her lifestyle seems a bit expensive for a financial consultant?" he asked carefully. I dismissed his concerns. "She deals with wealthy clients all day. She has to look the part," I explained, though a small part of me had wondered the same thing. Her designer wardrobe and frequent mentions of high-end restaurants did seem at odds with typical salaries in her field. When I asked Megan about her past in Chicago, her answers were oddly vague. She mentioned a complicated relationship that ended badly, and a desire for a fresh start in Seattle. Something about the way her eyes darted away when discussing her past made me uncomfortable, but my growing feelings for her pushed these concerns to the background. 3 months into our relationship, we took a vacation to San Diego. While I had researched affordable Airbnbs, Megan insisted on a 5-star hotel overlooking the ocean. "We deserve to treat ourselves," she said, placing her hand on mine. "Life is too short to always be saving for tomorrow." I reluctantly agreed, pushing down my financial anxiety as I watched her book a room that cost more for 4 nights than my monthly rent. During that trip, Megan first mentioned her mentor, James Harrington. According to her, James was a wildly successful investment manager who had taken her under his wing early in her career. "You two would get along so well," she said, as we watched the sunset from our hotel balcony. "He has an amazing sense for emerging tech markets. Maybe he could give you some advice on your startup idea." As our relationship deepened, I found myself sharing more personal details with Megan. My childhood in Minnesota, my parents' divorce, and most importantly, my financial goals, and the growing savings I had accumulated. Looking back, I should have noticed how her interest peaked whenever the conversation turned to money, but love has a way of blinding you to the obvious. When I introduced Megan to my parents during their visit to Seattle, they immediately adored her. My mother later called to tell me Megan was the one and asked if I was thinking about proposing. For the first time in my life, the idea of marriage did not seem terrifying. It seemed like a natural next step. By our 6th month together, I was completely smitten. Meanwhile, Megan had begun asking more pointed questions about my career trajectory and earning potential. At the time, I interpreted this as her envisioning our future together. I had no idea she was methodically gathering information for something far more sinister. It was around our 6-month anniversary when Megan suggested we have a serious discussion about financial compatibility. We were at her apartment, a surprisingly spacious downtown unit, with floor-to-ceiling windows and upscale furnishings that must have cost twice her claimed salary. The city lights twinkled below us as she poured 2 glasses of expensive Cabernet. "If we are going to build a future together, we should be transparent about our finances," she said, her voice soft but insistent. "It is the foundation of any serious relationship." I hesitated, but her reasoning made sense. Reluctantly, I disclosed details about my savings account, my modest investment portfolio, and my 401k. Megan seemed particularly interested in my bank's security procedures, asking pointed questions about 2-factor authentication and account recovery methods. I explained everything, including how I kept a backup of passwords on an encrypted drive. "You are so responsible with your money," she said, sliding closer to me on the couch. "That is incredibly attractive." Her approval washed away my lingering discomfort. A week later, Megan brought up an exclusive investment opportunity that her mentor James had mentioned. "He rarely opens these to new investors, but I told him about your startup goals, and he thinks you would be perfect," she explained, eyes bright with excitement. "The returns could accelerate your timeline by years." My natural caution made me hesitate, but Megan's enthusiasm was contagious. When she arranged a dinner with James at Canlis, one of Seattle's most exclusive restaurants, I agreed to keep an open mind. James Harrington was everything Megan had described: tall, distinguished, with silver-streaked hair and an easy confidence that commanded respect. His Rolex glinted under the restaurant's soft lighting as he reached to shake my hand. Throughout dinner, he dropped names of tech giants he claimed to advise, and casually mentioned his homes in Aspen and the Hamptons. "Megan tells me you are quite the saver," James said, swirling his scotch. "That is rare in your generation. Most young people want instant gratification." "I have always believed in delayed gratification," I replied, feeling validated by his approval. "Smart man." "But there comes a point when smart saving should transition to smart investing," he continued, his voice taking on a mentoring tone. "The opportunity I am offering could double your capital within 18 months. It involves a portfolio of pre-IPO tech companies that my firm has exclusive access to." His technical explanations were peppered with industry jargon that sounded impressive, but in retrospect was deliberately vague. Still, his polished online presence, which I researched later that night, showed a Harvard MBA and glowing testimonials from apparent clients. In the weeks that followed, Megan became increasingly pushy about James's investment opportunity. "The window is closing," she would say. "Other investors are lined up." When I expressed doubts, her demeanor would shift dramatically, sometimes to tears, other times to cold silence, or accusations that I did not trust her judgment. One morning after Megan had stayed over, I returned from a shower to find her quickly setting my phone down. "Just checking the time," she said with a smile that did not reach her eyes. That same week, I noticed she had watched me enter my laptop password, her eyes tracking my fingers with unusual intensity. When Derek and his girlfriend joined us for dinner, I invited James at Megan's insistence. Throughout the evening, Derek asked pointed questions about James's investment strategies that the older man deflected with practiced ease. Later, Derek pulled me aside in the kitchen. "Guy, something is not right about that guy. His answers about market regulations were completely wrong, and the returns he is promising, they are impossible without insider trading or fraud." Our conversation escalated into the first major argument of our relationship when I cautiously mentioned Derek's concerns to Megan later that night. "Your friend is jealous," she snapped, her usually warm voice turning ice cold. "Not everyone gets access to these opportunities. If you cannot trust me after 6 months together, what are we even doing?" After a week of emotional manipulation, alternating between tearful accusations and passionate reconciliations, I reluctantly agreed to attend an exclusive investor seminar at the Four Seasons. The event was carefully orchestrated with about 20 other potential investors, all seemingly successful professionals eager to hear James speak. During the presentation, I noticed several inconsistencies in James's claims about market performance and regulatory approvals. When I raised a technical question about verification of his claimed returns, Megan squeezed my arm painfully under the table. Her smile remained fixed, but her eyes flashed with something I had never seen before: fear mixed with anger. That night, while searching for a phone charger in Megan's purse with her permission, I found a crumpled receipt for a $5,000 cash transfer from R. Turner to A. Garrett, dated 2 weeks earlier. When confronted, Megan had an elaborate explanation involving a friend's wedding fund she was helping manage. The story was so detailed and delivered with such sincerity that I temporarily accepted it, though doubt had firmly taken root. My suspicions grew when I discovered Megan had lied about her previous employment. A casual mention of her former Chicago firm to a colleague who had worked in that city revealed no such company existed. When I searched online, I found only a bare-bones website with no staff directory or verifiable address. The foundation of trust in our relationship was cracking, and I knew I needed to dig deeper before committing any money to James's opportunity. With growing suspicion gnawing at me, I began a secret investigation into James Harrington's background and credentials. I spent late nights at the office researching his supposed investment firm, when Megan thought I was working overtime on a software project. What I discovered sent chills down my spine. His company was not registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission as he had claimed. The prestigious Chicago address listed on his business cards belonged to a virtual office service that rented mailboxes and conference rooms by the hour. Digging deeper, I uncovered a pattern of complaints in Wisconsin under the name James Henderson. Same face, slightly different name, identical investment pitch. The profiles of his alleged successful clients on his website used stock photos, and the testimonials matched word for word with those from a legitimate investment firm based in Boston. My hands shook as I closed my laptop. The man I had shared drinks with, whose financial advice I had considered, was likely a complete fraud. But was Megan an innocent victim, or a willing participant I needed to know? After much internal debate, I hired a private investigator, a former tech security specialist named Tony, who now specialized in financial fraud cases. I transferred $3,000 to him from an account Megan did not know about and provided all the information I had gathered. 5 agonizing days later, Tony called me to his office. The manila folder he slid across his desk contained information that shattered my world. Megan Wilson was actually Allison Garrett, a woman with a history of fraud cases in Illinois and Minnesota. She had never worked in financial consulting. Her last known legitimate employment was as a cocktail waitress at an upscale Chicago lounge frequented by wealthy businessmen, her hunting ground for marks. She has been involved in at least 3 similar scams. Tony explained, his voice gentle, as he watched my face crumple. The pattern is always the same. She targets financially responsible professionals with substantial savings, introduces them to her mentor, and helps pressure them into fraudulent investments. Once the money transfers, they both disappear. That night, I checked all my financial accounts and discovered multiple unauthorized login attempts. Someone had tried to access my primary savings account from an unrecognized device in Bellevue, where James maintained an office. My password had not been compromised, but the attempts showed a methodical approach to breaking in. Operating on autopilot, I purchased security cameras from a store across town and installed them in my apartment, while Megan was at a work event. I placed one discreetly in my home office, where I kept financial documents, and another covering the living room. 2 days later, the footage revealed Megan methodically searching through my desk drawers while I was at the grocery store. She photographed documents, examined my external hard drive, and tried different password combinations on my desktop computer. The woman I thought I loved was systematically violating my privacy and trust. But the most devastating discovery came when Megan accidentally left her phone unlocked beside me while she took a shower. Fighting waves of nausea, I opened her messages and found an extensive text history with James, whose real name I learned was Robert Turner. The exchanges were explicit about their plans. The Seattle tech guy is almost ready. Another week of pressure, and he will transfer the funds. How much are we looking at? 175 kelvins in primary savings. Plus he has another 60 kelvins in a brokerage account. we can probably access once we have his main passwords. Good work, ally. This one might be our biggest score yet. Their conversation detailed how they had targeted me specifically after Megan, divided by Allison, had researched local tech companies and identified me as a promising mark due to my social media posts about financial independence. They discussed their previous victims in Chicago and Portland, other professionals whose lives they had upended. I learned that James, divided by Robert, was wanted in 3 states for similar scams. Further scrolling revealed they were part of a larger fraud ring, targeting tech professionals throughout the Pacific Northwest. They chose victims carefully: single, financially stable individuals with minimal family connections in the area and significant savings. I fit their profile perfectly. I sat motionless on my couch, phone still in hand, feeling like I had been hollowed out. Eventually, I drove to Derek's apartment, where I broke down completely as I shared everything I had discovered. My best friend held steady, making me tea and helping me work through the initial shock. "You need to go to the police," he insisted. "Not yet," I replied, my mind racing ahead. "If I report this now, they might just disappear and find a new victim. I want to make sure they cannot do this to anyone else." The next day, I tracked down Marcus Jenkins, a software engineer in Portland, who had fallen victim to their scheme 6 months earlier. He had lost $120,000 and was still dealing with the aftermath of identity theft. "They are meticulous," Marcus told me over a secure video call. "They wait until you trust them completely, then they strike. After the money is gone, they vanish. New names, new city, new victims." While pretending everything was normal with Megan, I noticed she had begun subtly moving her belongings out of my apartment. A few clothes here, a favorite book there. She was preparing for her own disappearance. The final piece of evidence came when I discovered draft emails on her tablet about their next target: a biotech researcher in Redmond, with estimated savings of over $200,000. I also found a folder containing scanned copies of my driver's license, birth certificate, and social security card. They were not just planning to steal my money, they intended to steal my entire identity. In a state of controlled panic, I met with a security specialist at my bank. "This is the 3rd case like this I have seen this year," she confirmed after reviewing the evidence. "These rings are sophisticated and typically stay one step ahead of law enforcement by crossing state lines and changing identities." I knew then that I needed to be smarter than Megan and James. I needed to set a trap that would not just protect me but would bring their entire operation crashing down. "I have been thinking about James's investment opportunity," I told Megan over dinner at her favorite restaurant. Her eyes widened slightly, the only indication of her surprise at my apparent change of heart. "You are right. I have been too cautious for too long." "That is wonderful, babe," she replied, reaching for my hand across the table. "I know this will set you up perfectly for your startup dream." While maintaining this facade of compliance, I was methodically building my counterattack. My first step was consulting with Maria Santos, an attorney specializing in financial crimes. Her office, tucked away in a Seattle high-rise, became my war room. "What you are describing is a sophisticated romance scam combined with investment fraud," Maria explained during our first meeting. "The good news is that you have not transferred any money yet. The bad news is that prosecuting these individuals is challenging without concrete evidence of their intent to defraud." With Maria's guidance, I developed a comprehensive plan. First, I created a new high-yield account at my bank, with special monitoring protocols. The account contained only $20,000, enough to be enticing but not devastating if something went wrong. The bank's security team placed alerts on all my legitimate accounts and changed their access protocols. Next, I installed specialized software on my devices to track digital footprints and record any access attempts. I also purchased high-quality recording equipment to document every conversation with both Megan and James. The most significant breakthrough came when Maria connected me with FBI agent Karen Rodriguez from the Financial Crimes Unit. "We have been tracking a ring matching this profile for over a year," she explained during our confidential meeting. "What you are describing fits their pattern perfectly. Your case could be the break we need." Agent Rodriguez revealed they had identified at least 5 other victims, but had struggled to gather sufficient evidence for prosecution. The perpetrators were careful to operate in legal gray areas, using pressure rather than explicit threats, and ensuring victims willingly transferred funds, making fraud charges difficult to prove. We need evidence of their intent to defraud, she explained. Conversations where they explicitly discuss the fraudulent nature of the investment or their plans to disappear with the money. With FBI guidance, I arranged an investment dinner at Altura, an exclusive restaurant where James could present the final details of his opportunity. The reservation was for a private dining room, perfect for clear audio recording. I arrived early to test the discrete recording devices I had placed around the room, with a backup in my jacket pocket. When Megan and James arrived, I played my role perfectly, the eager investor finally ready to commit. I asked strategic questions designed by the FBI to elicit incriminating responses. So once I transfer the funds, what exactly prevents you from just disappearing with my money? I asked with a nervous laugh, making it sound like a joke. James chuckled, placing a hand on my shoulder. Guy, this is why we have contracts. Everything is legitimate. But his eyes betrayed a momentary flash of concern at my directness. And the returns you are promising, 30% in 6 months. How can you guarantee that when most venture funds struggle to hit 20% annually? I pressed. Our exclusive access to pre-IPO opportunities, he answered smoothly. Plus, we operate with certain regulatory advantages that larger firms cannot utilize. By dessert, James had provided written documents outlining the investment structure. Documents that Agent Rodriguez had confirmed contained multiple fraudulent claims and misrepresentations that violated securities law. I signed the preliminary agreement with a steady hand despite my pounding heart. I will make the transfer tomorrow morning. I promised, raising my glass in a toast. To new beginnings. After dinner, I excused myself to use the restroom, but actually slipped out a back entrance where an FBI technician was waiting to secure the recording devices. Meanwhile, a surveillance team followed Megan and James to a nearby bar where they celebrated their apparent success. A conversation captured by a planted recording device in Megan's purse. Their explicit discussion about cleaning out Guy's accounts and moving on to the Redmond target by next month provided the final evidence needed. The next day, I filed formal complaints with the FBI, SEC, and Washington state authorities, compiling all the evidence I had gathered into a comprehensive case file. Agent Rodriguez assembled a team for the sting operation that would catch them in the act. We scheduled a meeting at a small private bank branch where I would supposedly finalize the investment transfer. I arrived wearing a wire and carrying a cashier's check made out to James's fraudulent company. Before I hand this over, I said, my voice remarkably steady. Walk me through exactly how this investment is structured one more time. As James launched into his practiced explanation, he pulled out his laptop and attempted to access my accounts using credentials they had stolen from my home. The final criminal act needed to complete the case against them. Agent Rodriguez and 4 other agents emerged from the bank's conference room. Robert Turner and Allison Garrett, you are under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes, she announced. The look of shocked betrayal on Megan's face, not because I had been disloyal, but because her con had failed, is something I will never forget. She made a desperate attempt to flee through the bank's service entrance, but was quickly apprehended by waiting officers. The arrests led to the discovery of evidence implicating 12 other members of their fraud network operating throughout the West Coast. My meticulous documentation became the cornerstone of the prosecution's case, with Agent Rodriguez later telling me it was the most comprehensive evidence package from a civilian she had seen in 15 years with the Bureau. In the months following the arrests, I experienced the full emotional impact of what had happened. The woman I thought I might someday marry had never actually existed. Every moment, every intimate conversation, every supposed dream shared had been calculated manipulation. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. Sleep became a luxury. I rarely enjoyed as nightmares of Megan searching through my personal belongings haunted my nights. Daytime brought paranoid thoughts. I questioned the motives of new acquaintances and found myself verifying even basic information people shared with me. What you are experiencing is a normal trauma response, Doctor. Levine, my therapist, explained during one of our weekly sessions. Romance scam survivors often suffer from complex emotional wounds. It is not just financial fraud, but intimate betrayal at a profound level. Through therapy, I began processing the tangled emotions. Humiliation that I had been so thoroughly fooled, anger at the calculated deception, grief for the relationship I thought I had, and fear that I would never trust anyone again. The legal proceedings brought additional stress. Giving depositions and preparing for criminal trials forced me to relive the manipulation in excruciating detail. I learned that Megan, or Allison, had victimized 3 men before me, including a doctor in Chicago who lost his entire retirement savings and a software engineer in Portland who had to declare bankruptcy. The courtroom was tense during the proceedings. Megan's attorney attempted to portray her as a victim herself, manipulated by the charismatic Robert into participating in the scheme. This narrative collapsed when prosecutors presented evidence of her independent targeting of victims before she had ever met Robert, along with recordings of her coaching other women on how to identify and manipulate potential marks. When I delivered my victim impact statement at the sentencing hearing, I looked directly at Megan. "You did not just attempt to steal my money," I told her, my voice unwavering. "You stole my trust, my sense of security, and nearly 2 years of my life. But you failed to take the most important things: my resilience and my ability to rebuild." The vindication of seeing both Megan and James sentenced to significant prison terms, 8 and 12 years respectively, brought a sense of closure but not complete healing. That would take much longer. In the year that followed, I rebuilt my sense of security through continued therapy and by joining support groups for fraud victims. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my relationship with Megan, grateful for Derek's unwavering support throughout the ordeal. Finding purpose in my experience became an unexpected path to healing. I joined a financial crimes awareness organization, sharing my story at community workshops to help others recognize the warning signs I had missed. Each time I spoke, the burden seemed lighter, transforming my painful experience into a tool that could protect others. The most challenging aspect was explaining my situation to new people I dated. How do you tell someone that your ability to trust has been fundamentally damaged without scaring them away? I learned to be honest but measured, sharing my experience when appropriate, without letting it define every new connection. With the help of a legitimate financial advisor, whose credentials I thoroughly verified, I rebuilt my investment strategy and implemented sophisticated security measures for all my accounts. Surprisingly, the fraud had not destroyed my entrepreneurial drive. If anything, it had strengthened my resolve to create something meaningful of my own. 6 months ago, I met Kate at a cybersecurity conference where I was speaking about romance scams. As a digital forensics specialist, she understood the technical aspects of what I had experienced in a way few others could. Our relationship has developed slowly with radical transparency on both sides. When trust has been shattered, rebuilding it requires patience and consistent reassurance. Looking back, I realized that while Megan targeted me for my financial responsibility, that same quality, my careful, methodical approach to life, ultimately allowed me to turn the tables and bring down their entire operation. The qualities that made me a mark also made me their downfall. This experience transformed not just how I approach relationships and money, but how I view myself. I learned to trust my instincts when something feels wrong, to verify information before accepting it as truth, and to recognize that emotional manipulation is a powerful tool that can override rational thinking. The most unexpected gift from this painful chapter has been a deeper connection with myself. In rebuilding my life, I discovered strengths I never knew I possessed, and a resilience that will serve me for years to come. Have you ever experienced betrayal from someone you trusted completely? How did you rebuild that trust in yourself and others? Share your stories in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who is going through something similar right now. Do not forget to like and subscribe for more real-life stories, and hit that share button if you know someone who might benefit from hearing this. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes our most painful experiences become our most powerful teachers.